Hello and welcome to Brogna Arts. I am making this video because I want to let you know that you do not need expensive art supplies to make good art. And when you are starting, spending a lot of money on art supplies seems like a very big commitment. I'll hopefully show you that you can create quality art with inexpensive supplies. You don't need to have the fanciest paints, but you do need to understand the paints that you do have. With any materials you have, you should know their properties and limitations. That's why you should swatch, test, and mix colors to better understand your paints. Today I am swatching and painting with the Prang Oval 16 semi-moist watercolors. This was the first palette of watercolors that I learned to use in high school, and it is also the palette that I did my first commissions on about 4 months ago. I would not recommend using this palette for commissions, but I'll get to that later. Here I am testing out the opacity of the paints, seeing how they cover the black line. The more opaque the color is, the more it will cover the black line with a film. If the paint is transparent, then the black line will remain unchanged. This will let me better understand the paints I am using and how opaque or transparent they are. For those of you that are looking to invest in a watercolor palette, I do want to list some pros and cons for this particular palette today. Some of the pros I found was the palette is pretty cheap and affordable. The colors are very pigmented and vibrant. The colors are not muddy. There's no wax fillers, which is advertised on the side of the box. And also the lid is a very large mixing area. Some of the cons for this palette are that the colors are slightly more opaque than normal watercolors. There's a weird variety of colors just because you don't have a cool yellow like a lemon yellow. There's also no Payne's gray in the palette, which I personally love having. The colors lift easily, which could be a pro or a con depending on your painting style. And unfortunately, you do not know anything about the pigment information and you do not know about their light fastness. Because you do not know the light fastness of these paints, I do not recommend using them for commissions just because if someone was commissioning you for a very expensive large piece of work, these paints could fade in the light due to the sun because you do not know their light fastness. Here we have our finished swatches. I want to let you know that some of the paints do cover the black line if you look at the yellow-green and the yellow-orange, as well as some of the violets and some of the blues actually too. They are a lot more opaque when compared to other artist-grade watercolors. That is perfectly okay. As long as we know that, we are able to work with them. When looking for a beginner palette, I recommend that you look for a palette with at least one warm and cool of each of the primaries, red, yellow, blue. An example of that would be having a warm and a cool yellow. Something like that would be a lemon yellow and a cadmium yellow together. After the warm and cool primaries, it is honestly up to you on what other colors you would like to have in your palette. I would also suggest a Payne's Gray and a Burnt Umber just because those are shades that I frequently reach for. I do not recommend getting a palette with too many colors because as a beginner you may find that overwhelming, and also having a limited color palette will give you a better understanding of color mixing and you'll know which colors you need to mix together to get your desired color. Some other beginner palettes I would suggest looking into are the Arteza watercolor set of 12 colors and the Winsor & Newton Cotman set of 14 colors. Both of these are the student line of each brand, and I will link both of them in the description below so you can check them out. When investing in art supplies, it's my personal belief that you should try to buy the best that you can afford, but you do not need the best art supplies to make the best art. The best way to start learning is just to do it, make mistakes, not everything will be amazing, and I'm giving you permission to start by making bad art. I'm really happy to make this video today just because one of my goals as an artist is to make art more accessible to people and also to represent as many people as possible through art. For this painting, I quickly sketched my left hand. It took about 15 minutes. Then I started with a purple as a shadow color to start defining the shapes and values of the form. Next, I glazed with the yellow-orange as a mid-tone and a base flesh color. This color is quite opaque, so I was trying to keep the color very diluted to show the purple layer underneath. Then I added glazes of red to add some warmth and just observing my own hand and which areas appeared more red. After that, I mixed blue with the yellow-orange to make a desaturated shadow color, and I put that over many of the purple shadows to desaturate the purple as well as to create more depth in the shadows. Here is our final painting. My goal with this painting was to paint in a looser style. I tend to get too focused on the details, and I do like the way it came out. Once again, I am saying that you do not need expensive art supplies to make good art. Get the best that you can afford and start learning. Let me know what your first watercolor palette was and also what questions you have about watercolors in general. Thank you for joining me today at Brogna Arts. Please give this video a like, and I will see you next week.